Thanks very much. We really appreciate everybody coming. You know, in business, it's an old mantra that nothing happens until someone sells something.
You know, and we've said this before. Sales is the lifeblood of any business, and especially small businesses, because they are more often cash flow constrained. And so sales are so important.
You know, whether you are a small one-person startup or a multinational corporation, almost every business is revenue constrained and revenue dependent.
Yes, we've had so many startups and small business people that come to us and they want us to take a look at their business, because we do some angel investing too. And we almost always have to tell them the same kinds of things.
And one of the things that we find ourselves saying when people come to us wanting us to invest in their business is, go sell something.
Go sell something. Yeah.
You know, you've got to demonstrate that you've got a product or a service that people are actually willing to pay for. And then I'd like to talk to the people who bought it, and I'd like to have them tell me, oh yeah, this was a great value, we'll buy it again. Right. Or we'll recommend it. You've got to be able to close the sale.
Right. A lot of small business people, they first get into business because they're passionate about and probably really good at doing the primary work of the business, whatever that is. So they go into business because they're really passionate about that primary work, but they forget about something.
They're great at making widgets. And then all of a sudden, they figure out, oh no, I got to sell these things.
Right.
Not only do I have to be a great widget maker, I've got to be able to sell, and I've got to be able to market, and I've got to be able to close sales.
Right. So it doesn't matter whether you make brownies, or you're a management consultant, or you're selling phones, or whatever it is, or any kind of service. You've got to be able to put your value proposition together. And so that is why we're so excited this evening that Neil Lappy is with us. Neil actually founded his company, Web Strategies Inc. in 2004. Which is a digital marketing agency which specializes in web development, SEO, web analytics, sales training, and sales development. Two very important things there at the end. In 2012, Neil's firm was ranked number 2 worldwide out of the more than 1,100 companies that make up his network of WSI companies. In 2011, Neil published his book, The Forensics of Selling, and is currently conducting research on his next book, which is going to look at the sales process from the customer's perspective. So maybe when we go into question and answer, you can ask him a little bit about that. So help me in welcoming Neil Lappy.
Okay, thanks. It was great to hear some of Doug and Polly's comments, because I live by 2 sayings. There are 2 sayings I live my life by. One is, nothing good happens unless money's coming in the door. We all agree with that, right? Yeah. The other one is, only the paranoid survive. Only the paranoid survive. If you're not worried about what's going to happen with your business, then it's the beginning of the end, in my opinion. Because you always got to, these days things change so fast, you always got to be on edge. And so for me, only the paranoid survive. Okay? Anyway, there are a lot of sales stories out there, okay, but I heard one recently I just wanted to share with you. There was a kind of an older sales guy, about my age, with failing eyesight, like me, and he goes on this call, and he sits down with the business owner, and he says, I was out in your lobby, and I saw this there was an awesome picture of you and John Madden. And the business owner says, that wasn't John Madden. That was my wife. You think he got to say it? I don't think so. Anyway, so here's, Pally said a few things and Doug said a few things. Real quick, I started the company from 0 revenue in 2004. Oftentimes people say, and today we're over $1 million in annual revenue. People often say, what was your business plan? And I said it was very simple. Sell as much as you can, as fast as you can. That was my business plan. And so that's what I did. And I will tell you, again, to reinforce one of Doug and Polly's comments, what we can do with the kind of revenue we bring in today is far different than what we could do with no revenue. Okay? We have 10 employees, And we can reward them a lot more graciously than we could before, and that's what revenue does for you. Okay? So, I started the company back in 2004 with nothing. We have 10 employees, over $1 billion in revenue. Polly and Doug talked about our ranking. We're part of a worldwide network of WSI companies. We're number 2 out of about 1,100 in terms of revenue generation. Sales is my passion. Helping people grow and develop and reach their full potential is also my passion. So that's why we are now getting into the sales training and assessment and development business. Okay? So, primarily we're a digital marketing agency. We're expanding into sales. I already said that. There are 5 factors that make for top salespeople. And these are the 5 factors. You got to know your product, right? Makes sense. You need to have, for the super salespeople, you need to have a natural aptitude for sales. That's something you can't teach. Okay? You also have a mastery of the top 10 selling skills. I'll share those with you in a minute. You have to be self-motivated, and you have to use the best practices of the selling process. Now, let's talk about, are salespeople made or born? What do you think? Are people made or born? It says born, some says made. Yeah, research says it's about 50-50. Okay? But if you don't have a natural aptitude, do you think you can learn enough to become a super elite salesperson if you don't have the basic aptitude? Research says it's unlikely that you'll become a top 10%er in your field in sales if you don't have the natural aptitude. So part of what we focus on assessments to make sure you got the right people on the bus. Like Jim Collins said in his book, Good to Great. Here are the top 10 selling skills. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I'm going to focus on primarily 4 of them, dialed down to about 3. Okay, the first one is going to be talking about building rapport. And what the cartoon says, you probably can't read it, it says, "Hi pal, that's some fish you have on the wall. By the way, are you a golfer? Is that the picture of your family? What a good looking bunch there. Do you travel much? I think we're going to have a great relationship." That's what's called showing up and throwing up. Okay? You know, you say that to a prospect that you really don't know, and their toes start to curl. Mine would anyway. All right? So we're going to talk about building rapport, because people buy from people they like. People buy from people with whom they have a relationship. So how do you create that connection and that relationship? There are 2 strategies here, or 2 tactics. There's a mirror and match your prospect. And what that means is, if you assess your prospect as an anal retentive, detail-oriented individual, then you better start acting that way if you're not naturally that way. Okay? That's what mirror and matching is. I'll get into that in a second. Secondly, you ask good questions to gain credibility. So, let's go to the first. Who in here has taken the DISC profile? Okay? A few of you? What are you?
I'm an I.
You're an I. Okay. Most people in America are I's. Mm-hmm. You're an influencer. Okay, so you're in that top from your end, the top right corner. Okay? So
a little bit of D too.
And a little bit of D. And we're very much alike. Who else has taken it? Minnie, you took it?
Same thing. Yeah.
You're same, okay?
I'm mostly D and partly I.
You're DI, okay, so you know that's I think stats are about 46% of people in America are I's with a little bit of D. Okay? Any other profiles in the room?
Douglas.
Douglas, what are you?
He's a DC.
A DC.
Yeah.
Okay. Because weren't you in the financial field at one point in time?
Well, I've been in all kinds of different fields.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
I just couldn't hold a job very well.
Yeah, I understand that. I know how that is. Okay, so if you want to take your DISC profile, you can do it free. There's the website. You should write that down. It's free. Go online to that website. You can take it, and it'll score it for you, and you'll know what you are. It's important that you know what you are so that you can understand what others are and modify your behavior accordingly. Okay, now the chat, now, can you read this stuff at all?
Yes.
Is it focused okay, I wonder? There you go, okay. All right, so the toughest part, the toughest challenge for us IDs, so to speak, for us I's, is to sell to these people. So you cross over, you do an X. They're the most challenging for an I. This is the most challenging for a D. If you're a C, you have the hardest time selling an I, etc. Okay? Now, when you walk into somebody's office, how can you tell what they are? Any suggestions? How can you tell what they are? Yeah.
Desk organization.
And what does that tell you?
Either if it's all over the place, it's probably an I. If it's put together, it's probably a C.
Okay, that's not 100%,
No.
but that's a good indicator. What else? What other indicators? Yeah.
When they first start talking to you, how quickly they introduce themselves, how quickly they're speaking.
Okay, that's a good one. All right, excellent. Other suggestions, other things. There's a lot of ways.
Body language.
How so?
Are they stiff and formal, sitting up straight, sitting on the front of their chair? Are they more relaxed and casual, leaning back,
Good.
taking up space?
Good. Do you ever get emails from some people that are kind of flowery and very personal versus others that are very, very rote and very short and succinct? That's an indication as well. Okay? If you walk into the office and you see pictures on the walls of people and families and stuff like that, what does that tell you? It tells you they're more of an I. They're outgoing, gregarious, enthusiastic, all that kind of stuff. Okay? Those are ways to tell. Okay, so it's important that you assess your customer. I'm a big I. Like I said, I'm a big I with a D, okay? And so I'm in a sales meeting a couple weeks ago, and I'm talking to a CFO who is as far here as one can get. And I had to dial it down. I had to focus on simply the numbers and dial it down. Made the sale, but you have to observe those things. Because people buy from people they like. People buy from people like them. So mirror and matching is a critical tactic. Can you write that domain name down and take your disk profile? Very important. Okay, so we've been doing some research for my second book. We've done a few focus groups to understand questions we want to ask in a quantitative survey. We're about to distribute the survey. And on that survey results, I'm going to write my next book later this year. So we ask people, these are customers, these are business owners, what have you found to be the most effective way to build rapport? For a salesperson to build rapport with you. Okay? What do you think? Any thoughts?
Depends on what they are.
Here's what they said. We often think, let's do some little small talk and stuff like that. 9% of the people said that. Compliment you on your business or employees, 9%. Open with small talk about current events, 0. Demonstrate confidence by asking good penetrating questions. Now, you're not going to walk into a sales meeting and the first thing out of your mouth is going to be, so who's your target market? And how do those people behave? How do they research, buy, and evaluate products and services? You're not going to ask that question. Okay. But depending on their personality, let me go back. Oh, sorry. If they're here, talk a little bit about what's going on. Make a comment about something, okay? Because they're going to want to talk, all right? If they're here, don't waste a lot of time. If they're up here, they're going to want you to get right to the heart of the matter quick. All right? So you got to pace yourself, assess your prospect, and then act accordingly. Okay, so that's how you build rapport. Those are 2 strategies for building rapport. Right. We're going to shift now. We're going to talk about Zopa. Anybody familiar with Zopa? Zopa started as a negotiating tactic. It's called the Zone of Possible Agreement. Okay? So, I learned Zopa about 4 years ago. And I started to implement Zopa in my selling strategies, my selling tactics. My average sale increased, this is no BS here, 60%. My average size of my sale increased 60%. I've always had a good close rate, so that didn't change much. But the average size of my sale increased 60%. Friggin' amazing. And I do it every time now. And here's what it is. Zopa is, sorry about the colors a little bit. This is buyer's range. This is seller's range. This is the middle. And you can see the dimensions here. This is where the buyer wants to buy, price-wise, or desired price. This is worst case scenario. Of course, it's opposite for the salesperson, right? So how do you deal with that? Here's how I've learned to deal with it. Good, better, best. I don't have these results here, but it's close to 100% of the people in our focus groups, part of our research right now, said when asked, would you rather, 1, be presented with a solution, one single solution that makes good sense for your business, or 2 solutions, both of which make good sense for your business and are priced differently, or 3 options, all of which make good sense for your business, all of which fit into your budget? Which is your choice? They almost all said 3. Now, prior to this, I used to think my job as a good sales consultant is to go in, assess the situation, and tell the person what they need to do. And it still is. And if you're in sales, that's your job as well. But there's always this thing called price, that sometimes gets in the way of making a sale. So you want to present a good, better, best approach. And here's what you want to do. You want to assess your prospect's budget. And if you've done a good job of building rapport, asking penetrative questions, building credibility, it's likely that your prospect will give you some indication of what their budget is. They'll probably lie to you on the low side, but they will give you some indication. So what you do is you say, okay, then I'm going to build a proposal. My good proposal is going to be at the client's stated budget, right around the client's stated budget. Because I want to get 100% close rate. My job as a salesperson is to close every qualified deal I get in front of. That's my job as a salesperson. So I'm going to present myself and present options in a way, every one of them makes sense. The bottom one meets the customer's budget on the low side. The top one is priced at the most I think I can ever get from this person. The middle one is about 60% the way up from good. All right? So, good, better, best. Your good is $1,000. Your best is $3,000, and your better is about $2,200. $1,000, $2,200, $3,000. It's your good, better, best. And you create your solutions so that they fit into that good, better, best model and generate the kind of margin you need to sustain your business. Okay? You don't sell stuff below what it should be sold for. You just package it in a way that meets your price and meets your gross margin requirements. Good, better, best. Here's my experience. I've been doing this for 4 years. And I probably, I'm just estimating here, I probably close about 50 deals a year. Okay, average 5 pitches each. Okay, about 50 a year. In 4 years, I've only had one customer take the good option. I'm shocked. Okay? I've only had one customer take the good option. I think part of it is the customer doesn't want to embarrass himself by being cheap. And that's okay with me. You know? You think about it. One customer out of about 200 has taken the good option. They most of them will take the better. And I've had maybe 20% take the best. And when they take the best, mentally I'm thinking, holy shit, how am I going to price this thing? You know? So good, better, best. Very important. That's the zone of possible agreement. Questions about this? This is a really, 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 really critical strategy. Yeah.
So you determine your good proposal by what they say their budget is. How do you, because when you said 1,000, 3,000, that blew me out of the water. I would have assumed their budget really might be 1,500 if they said 1,000. How do you get an idea of what the best would be?
Well, you know, you got to, how do you got what the best will be? You know, that's a tough one because you know what you're doing during the sales process is you're talking about their objectives. You're talking about their customers. You're talking about their average sale. You're talking about what kind of gross margins they get from their average sale. And you start to get a sense for what's the value, what's the 2 to 3 to 5 year value, depending on your business, of one of their customers. Mm-hmm. Okay? When you start assessing it like that, and you understand what the value of a customer is to them, then you can start to do some economics in your head and identify, you know, what are my services worth? If your customer is worth that, then what are my services worth, you know, relative to that? It's kind of subjective, you know. But I'll ask the customer, what's your budget for something like this? Or my typical question is, okay, this is great. What kind of budget have you allocated for this? Some will say, well, I have no idea. And most of them, when they say that, they're lying. Customers lie from me. That's shocking, I know, but they lie from me. Okay? And I'll say, okay, that's fine. I'll say, you know, based upon what we're talking about, I think, you know, we're probably somewhere in the $4,000 to $15,000 area. I know that's a big area, but you know, that's, you know, there are a lot of options we have. What do you think about that? They might say, oh, that's about right. Or they might say, ooh, that's high. Or they might say, yeah, we'd be comfortable there. Okay? And so I start to arrange my good, better, best with 4,000 might be my better, my good, 15 grand, maybe 18 grand might be my best. I might up the good to 5 because I know he or she's probably lying to me. You know, that's kind of thing. That's how I'll find that budget. Okay? Yes?
And how are you determining which services go with which package? So
Yeah.
assuming that they've given you a budget, they've probably also said what they are looking for. So is the basic ask, is that the good package?
It may not be because they may not be able to afford me. So I will, if their budget is low relative to my solution, then my targeted solution might become the better, and a abbreviated but value-added solution might become the good. Okay. You had a question back here in the back.
You answered it because I was going to ask, how does the customer know what your good price is?
Right. Okay. I answered it for you?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so Zopa, you got to do it. It works. All right, so how do you know when to close the sale? This, historically, is the hardest thing for somebody to learn in the sales business. How do you know when you're ready to close the deal? Ask for the sale. Okay? So, It says, this guy says, you're a pretty good sales rep, except for the 9 times you called me Wallet instead of Walter. Okay. All right, so there's a thing called trial closing. And frankly, trial closings are nothing more than asking questions that help you assess the situation. I just want to check time. Do you want objections? Do you want to hear objections to what you're proposing?
Yes.
Absolutely you do. Why? You know where you stand. You know what you got to fight for. You know what you got to overcome, etc. You want objections. Oftentimes people say, "Hey, we don't want any objections." We just, but you want them because you want to learn what you need to do. So you ask trial closing questions to see where you are in the process. You ask trial closing questions to identify objections and to know when to ask for the sale. So if you're asking good questions like, let's see, I have a few. So what are your thoughts so far about what we've discussed? That's a trial closing question. If the customer says, well, this sounded good, but I'm not sure about this, then you know you've got to work on this. If on the other hand, the customer says, you know what, I think you've nailed this thing. I think everything you've talked about is what we want. You're getting pretty close to asking for the sale. If not, you're already there. Okay? How well do you think these solutions will solve your problem? It's a great trial closing question, right? What's the customer going to say? You know what? I think they're pretty good, but I got a question about this and this. Right? Or, I never heard so many awesome ideas. Okay? I'm ready to roll. When can we get started? What else have I not covered that's important to you? Great trial closing question. What elements of what we've covered are you most concerned about? You're drawing out objections now. You're drawing out things that are going to be impediments to closing the deal. If we could overcome that problem, would you feel comfortable in moving forward? Customer says yes. Then you solve that problem. How do you feel about the solution to that problem you raised? Oh, I think that'll work. Okay. So, are we ready to get started? How would you like to proceed from here? That kind of thing. So you're ready to close the deal and ask for the sale. Questions about this? Very simple trial closing questions just to help you assess the situation and know when to ask for the sale. All right, so our focus groups. We went out to we asked our focus group this question as well. We said, which closing statement question would you prefer to be asked by a salesperson? 14% of them said, if you can do X, Y, Z, if I say, if I can do that for you, are you ready to get started? Okay, about 1 in 7. Would you like to start with option A or B? 0. If you agree to get started today, I'll throw in X for free. 0. How would you like to proceed from here? We've covered all the bases. What would you like the next step to be? These are good, soft, asking for the sale questions. Okay, open-ended questions. You're not asking, hey, are you ready to buy? You're not asking the question, you're ready to sign the contract. What would you like the next step to be from your end? Let them make that choice, but you're essentially asking for the sale. Okay? Now, what's a customer likely to say, possibly, if you say, how would you like to proceed, or what would you like the next step to be? What's a customer likely to say? What do you think? Anybody?
We need to talk it over.
What's that?
How much is it?
Okay, you've already covered the price. Okay.
We'll tell you what you haven't covered or what they're looking for, or they'll tell you it's not fit.
Okay. Somebody said, I need to think it over. You get that a lot, right?
Yeah.
You really do. So when the customer says, I need to think it over, what's your comeback?
Tell me what it is, big concern.
Apparently there's
No.
something that
Yeah.
If I throw in X for free, can we get started today?
Yeah, exactly. There you go. I love it, Doug. I love the way you think. No, it's okay. I must have missed something. I must not have answered one of your questions, because if there's something you need to think about, then clearly I haven't answered an important question for you. What are your concerns? Okay. So now you're dialing back to kind of uncover those objections. Okay. Now the reality is, ultimately, somebody's going to say, I just need to think about it. I just, I make decisions by myself better, or whatever.
That's when they're a C.
Exactly. Good point, Polly. Good point.
Seriously,
Yeah,
they
they're a
need
C.
time to think about things.
Yeah. Well said. If they're an I and they're a risk taker,
Yeah.
maybe they're ready to go for it. So that's a good point. Okay. Let's see here. So, just to summarize, and then I'll cover a couple of other things, and then we'll answer some questions. 3 primary strategies and techniques to build rapport, assess your prospect, where he or she falls in that DISC profile, modify your approach to be more like him or her so you connect, and ask great penetrating questions, because that is, I tell you, in my experience, I've had people say to me, I've talked to a lot of people like you, and nobody's ever asked me those kinds of questions. It's credibility. Sets you apart. Number 2, ZOPA. Do it. It works. Your average sale will increase, and your close rate will probably increase. No one asks for a sale. Ask trial closing questions to uncover objections and impediments to closing the deal. Okay, so those are the 3 techniques. A couple of real quick things. We do sales assessments, and we use a CPQ model instrument that assesses your natural compatibility for sales. So if you're interested in learning more about this, write it down on your business card and give me your business card later. I'll follow up with you. We also do sales for top 10 selling skills. These are the top 10 selling skills. We also do training for these. And we're going to be holding a training session within the next 90 days here in Richmond. If you're interested in learning more about that, just write on your business card. You can give it to me later. Lastly, we do sessions with companies on the 15 best practices for sales marketing and customer relationship management. Okay, and that's kind of the life cycle of all that. Okay, we do it for companies, not individuals, for companies. So if you have a firm or you think your firm might benefit from something like this, write it on your card, give it to me later. I'll follow up with you. And I want to show you one last thing. I should have queued this up, so I apologize. It'll only take me about 30 seconds to cue this up, and then I want to show this to you. Here it is. And you know what? We might not have sound.
If you're scared, so am I. But we're scared for different reasons. I'm scared of what I won't become. You're scared of what I could become. Look at me. I won't let myself end where I started. I won't let myself finish where I began. I know what is within me. can't see it yet. Look me in the eyes. I have something more important than courage. I have patience. I will become what I know I am.
Okay, on Michael Jordan's 50th birthday, be legendary. He talks about being patient because you don't become a superstar overnight. You continue to learn and try and practice and practice and practice, and then you become a super elite salesperson if you have the natural aptitude. Questions I can answer for you about anything we've covered or about sales, any sales techniques or sales situations in general. Any questions? Yeah.
Would you mind putting it back to that top 10
Sure.
selling skills?
Sure. I think this was it, yeah. There you go. Any questions? Questions about, yeah.
So when you're, sort of closing on these trial closing questions, and they go to the place where it's, I need to think about this, and I have some time to look over this information, or it could be I need to show my supervisors, whatever it is. How much time do you allow before following up with them to try to close the deal?
Good question. So the scenario is this. You've left the office, right, and they're sitting with your stuff, right? First of all, just kind of a rule, you always want to be talking to the decision maker. Not always possible. But ideally, you want to be talking to the decision maker. And this is one of the other benefits about revenue coming in the door, because when revenue is not coming in the door, you'll talk to anybody. When revenue's coming in, we got enough revenue coming in the door, you can say, listen, I'd be happy to meet with you, but the decision maker's got to be there, or I don't come. So anyway, so you ideally you want to be talking to the decision maker. Let's say you are or aren't, but they need to think about it and you've left, right? That's the scenario. We asked that question in our focus groups, very important one. I don't have the data with me, but I think it said you want to wait about a week, and then we asked the question, what's the best way to follow up? Any thoughts about that? What do you think people said? Yeah.
I think you need to follow up with some kind of value added, something else that add value to it, not just hey, have you made a decision yet? So
Okay.
Bring another thing to the table.
Good. What else?
Probably depends on what style they are, how you want to follow up with them.
That would be that's important. Exactly. Okay. What else? The value added thing is important because you don't want to simply say, "Hey, have you made a decision yet?" Because now you're starting to be, you're pestering them. Okay. But if you, for example, I read about 5 newsletters a day. I don't read them. I get them. Some of them I read. And oftentimes it'll be a good article, an article that applies to this situation and supports my position and shows them that they need to buy from me, right? And I'll either send them the article or I'll send them a link. I said, hey, I was just thinking about you. Here, this came across today. I thought you might get some value from it. And by the way, any further thoughts or questions about what we discussed on Thursday? Okay? Value added is important. Sometimes I'll get to a point where I'll say, look, we talked 4 weeks ago. If you decide to work with another company, just let me know. It's okay to tell me no. I just want to know one way or the other, yes or no. And of course, sometimes you get an answer, sometimes you don't. It's a reality. Yeah, back.
I think that it's important early in the process to have an understanding of when they want to close the process. Because that gives you a timeline to work each of your steps. Then if there's still something lingering, and they've already told you, I need to get this done by March 31st,
right.
It's March 14th. We need to start rolling.
Absolutely.
To meet your deadline.
Very good point. Very good point. Yeah, that's part of the sales, part of the questioning process. You know, what's your timeline? You know, what, you know, how fast of a decision you're going to make about this. I want to make sure we can respond accordingly, et cetera. Yeah, good. What else? Any other questions? Any other questions about sales or closing or anything like that? Okay, great. Thank you so much for your attention and your questions.